Hello, family. How's everyone doing? All right, who do I have in the house? Y'all, kind of bear with me. I've been out for a good little minute. If I feel like a duck out of water. That's right way to say that. I had to run and go get my iPad. That's why I sound winded, family. So kind of hang with me for a second. I'm getting old, y'all. All right. Oh, with me for a second. Excuse back noise. I'm getting old, y'all. Hold on. Oh. I told y'all I'm like a duck out of water right now. What's up, family? What's going on? I missed y'all. So I wanted to bring a few people on. I wanted to kind of talk to everyone about the interesting, very good documentary that Pastor Kelly and Benaiah worked on. So I'm gonna bring them in. All right. Say greetings to the people.
I want to say peace and blessings to everyone. I want to say shalom, lak mashpaka to some, and I want to say shalom, lak mishpaka to others, and salama and some of the other greetings out there. So I want to say peace and blessings to everyone.
All right. I have Mr. Benaiah Israel himself.
Shalom, fam. Yeah, that was that was a Dr. Kelly masterpiece.
Correct. That was amazing.
Peace.
You got you have back noise, Pastor Kelly.
I had back noise.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Oh, okay. For some reason Benaiah muted and it didn't have that. Oh man.
Okay, I wonder if that was me. Do I still have feedback?
It's better now. It's better.
I can't hear it.
All right, family. So how we gonna do this? Let's just go ahead and wing it, y'all. I'm totally out of sync. Y'all know I've been chilling. So you know what, Pastor Kelly, tell me, how did you come up with the concept and the idea of doing this first? I want to know. Let's find out what's going on with the mad scientist when he's in his laboratory. What was you thinking when you came up with it?
Well, the thought behind it was, we already know a lot of people was doing a lot of talking about the pews. A lot of people that really don't know much about it, really don't understand the history behind it. And in order for people to really understand what's on the pews, you have to understand the history, and so the thoughts behind it was, okay, let's not just focus on the pews, but let's start dealing with the circumstances, because there is a language that oppressed people speak. There's a universal language. And, in order to really understand the pews, we have to understand the circumstances, the things along that line. So that was the concept of coming up with the idea of the road to Savannah. And so I thought about what Benaiah and what Moray Brown and others had done. And it's like he had a path that led him to Savannah. I had a path, and so we all crossed paths leading to Savannah. And what's ironic about the whole thing is that we discovered that we're all cousins. We're all blood relatives, literally. So that was the thought behind it. It was to really paint a picture, because most of our people of today have no clue, really don't have a clue about what our ancestors went through and what prompted them to put these writings on the pews. So for me, it was personal, because when I start hearing people make comments of saying that the pews don't matter, we don't need the pews. And that's the furthest from the truth in terms of this is all part of our culture. So for me, it was just to take a complete different approach to it, to kind of walk you through what I went through to transliterate a few of the pews, to show you the methodology.
Yeah, hey, cuz, just to kind of, and like I said, I don't like saying piggyback, so you'll hear me say lamb back. So it's the kosher way of saying it, right? But to lamb back on cuz, it's like you have to look at it this way. So there was, if you go back, if you jump into a time machine, you go back during the time that the church was flourishing, obviously self-identified as Israel, that, they talked, they sang songs, all the stuff that you've seen us put out in these previous videos. And so as time goes on, they pass away, they're laid to rest in the ground, right? And so to a certain extent, their voices are silenced, right? Fast forward to today, right? And then all of a sudden you have this new narrative coming out, right? That, hey, all of a sudden you guys they were, Arabic, and they're updating like these websites. And that's one of, Most High will touch on some of this stuff in future videos, but they're updating these websites on, and I guess I did call this out in the previous video, on very slim, small information, right? And they're using that to change websites, to update all kinds of things. But, long story short is the people that identified as Israel, they can't really speak up for themselves, right? They're laid to rest. Their souls are laid to rest. But to my cousin's point, so then what happens? The Most High, and this is why I truly attribute this to the Most High. The Most High pricks the hearts of the descendants of that church to come and speak on the behalf of those that are laid to rest, that self-identify to Israel, who can't speak for themselves, right? But the blood descendants, the Most High pricked to come and defend it, right? And that's why I say that's why this is a I call it a ruach. This is a spiritual thing, and I know we'll talk about it a little bit more, but there's definitely more to come. This was just the setup video.
The video was very good. And I think the history, what was the most, I guess, that piece of history that you pulled, Pastor Kelly, that kind of led into the conversation of Nat Turner and his thinking and how he did things and certain aspects of certain songs utilized. And I think that sits with me because with me coming up from a gospel background, I was very much so taught that those songs had strong symbolism to the Bible and who we are. Especially the song, when you brought up Still Away, it made me think about other writers and how their songs related back to the Bible, and it almost connected us. I always knew that it connected us some kind of a way, but not quite until I started really, really digging into who we are. So give me some of your thinking when you came up with that.
Well, see, as I shared in the episode 1, I kind of went personal with my grandmother. My grandmother raised me, and she was part of a group called the Four Roses. So they sang a lot of those songs like Go Down Moses, I'm Looking for a Miracle, Amazing Grace, Going Up to Yonder. So some of the songs that you hear is kind of the angle that I'm taking, even with the visuals, is me looking out of the window like how I used to do, especially when it would rain. Yeah. And I would start replaying whatever things I was going through at the moment. And so a lot of times I'll think about my grandmother's songs, or she'll be downstairs or in another room rather with the singing groups, and they're practicing and they're just getting it in. But listening to them sing and some of the things that they would say to me about what they meant, it resonated, and for me to where we are today and how those songs are being sang, a lot has gotten lost along the way because they've been really secularized. A lot of movies don't, when they deal with these songs, don't really paint a picture. So when you look at Still Away, and when you start really understanding the history behind these songs, like Still Away, like when we're dealing with Nat Turner, many people don't know that Nat Turner, the third stanza was the stanza that he sang that really had everyone fall in line and began the insurrection. So these songs there was encrypted, it was codes, it was messages. So in different regions, the songs took on a certain meaning. So if you're here in, let's just say, Maryland, Virginia area versus Mississippi or Texas, it'll have a different meaning based upon the region. But overall, the popular consensus, it was, hey, you know what? Take us back on the ship that you kidnapped us on and brought us here. Now take us back on that ship and bring us back to our territory.
Yep.
So it's a lot of layers to it.
Another thing, and I don't want to jump from this because you brought up a great one. When you think about these songs, and you brought about the Underground Railroad and how that was important, especially delving into the history of Harriet Tubman, being who she, as far as we consider her to be, the Black Moses. But a lot of those songs were signals. I'm throwing things out there because it was so many things and so many nuggets that kind of stuck with me. And when you talked about her, and then you delved into the lynchings and how they had ceremonies and festivals just for lynching ceremonies. And, you know, it's so much history there, good and the bad, that explains who we are as a people. We are a people we came from struggle. We came from a history of nothing was given to us. Everything was a struggle, even to this day. And it goes into some of our habits, and the way we respond to things is because of the things that our ancestors passed down. I don't ever want to say generational curses, but I want to say generational trauma. I'm sorry, I hear back.
You know, Benaya hit it on the nail too. The other thing that really stands out to me is when you read the Bible, right? Remember where Abraham built an altar in Bethel, right? Because of what the Most High had done for he and his wife. So he built an altar in Bethel. Little did he know that 2 generations later, his grandson was going to bury idols in Bethel. You know, so that altar was like a bookmark, a reminder of anyone that came to that particular area, a reminder of what the Most High had done for Abraham. So little did he know his nephew, not nephew, but grandson, was going to come to that same place and bury their idols there as they were making the transition back to their native area. But same thing with I view the pews, and not just the pews, the entire structure, everything of Savannah, as far as this church, the way that it was taught to me, it was the same approach, that they built this for us. Like that tradition of going down south for the summer came from there, because they want to make sure that once, you know, our people began to go up north, to remind them that go back down south, make sure you go right back down south to this place, and that way you get an understanding of who you are.
You're on mute, Sister E.
I'm sorry. Correct. You got anything to add, Benaya?
Well, actually, one of the things that came to mind was the evidence of it all. Like, for instance, if someone were to tell you that, hey, this person went to the park, and when he drove to the park and he parked on the side of the street, and he put his money in the parking meter, and then him and his party, they went over to the park and they put the blanket down and they ate and they barbecued, and then they put all their trash in the trash can, and then they threw the frisbee for a while, packed up, came back, you know, got in the car and left, right? And so in that example, there would be evidence around, or proofs that they were at the park, right? I mean, we could look at the parking meter and see that somebody paid, that he paid with his credit card. We could interview the people that were along the route, and people that were along the route could confirm, like, yeah, no, we saw them walk towards the park. And if you go to the park and you look at a trash can, you can see their trash in a trash can, right? So there's proof. I guess my point is that there's proof associated with events that occur in time, right? And the same is true for this church, which is why people are always surprised when, you know, we bring out proof after proof after proof after proof when it comes to this church, right? I mean, first of all, they were surprised that the pastors could refer to themselves as fathers in Israel, right? Then they were surprised that there was a plaque in the church where they were commemorating a pastor that was fallen, calling him a prince in Israel. You know, different things like that. Like we're talking about I guess we're going to talk about the songs here pretty soon. But even in the songs, there were songs that were full blown Hebrew. You can't, you know, things that you can't deny. The names that they've used, that they identified themselves, Gullah, which is one of the ones. That was 100% full-blown Hebrew. It is in your Bible, right? So that's why, you know, I think people are going to be shocked when they start to see all the evidence that comes out that proves that, hey, these people were actually there, right? And you know, and I think, in my opinion, I think some of the more shocking evidence still hasn't came out yet. And Most High will, and I think in episode 2 you'll start to see some of that. Actually, some of it is actually in this movie that you guys have been hearing me talking about for so long. That's making its way through the process. Just to kind of give just a quick update on that, it is making its way through the process. If you this is my first time ever putting stuff in mainstream media outlets like Amazon and stuff like that, and that stuff isn't straightforward. If anybody has gone through that process, you have to make some adjustments to to your material for it to get out in those formats. So it's making its way through those formats, and I do look forward to for that process to conclude soon, hopefully this month. So just a quick update on that.
Okay, cool. We can't wait. We're excited about that. I'm looking at the comments in this section. So, Pastor Kelly, can you give us some more ideas of when you start talking about the lynchings again? I want to go back to that. Can you kind of talk us through that? Because when you start explaining lynchings and the Negro codes and all that, kind of give us where you were coming from with that. Give us a brief.
Well, if you, I'm not sure if you caught one of the, like in the tech world, eggs that I had inside the video. There's some eggs in the video that hopefully the family caught, some nuggets that's inside the video. And one of the major nuggets you'll see is Edgar Hoover having on his Shriner's hat. Why is that important? He was a Freemason. He was a Shriner, and he had an agenda for our community, right? And then when you start understanding that and start taking the layers off, and say I've thoroughly studied the lynching period. When you go to, for example, 15 minute walk from where Eric Garner, not Eric Garner, but what's his name? George Floyd was lynched, right? You have a place that is called Masonic Square. 100 years prior to George Floyd's lynching, you had in Masonic Square, you had 3 brother men falsely accused for raping a white girl. And it's so sad. I have a copy of the letter that the prisoners wrote to hand them over to the mob. It was over 10,000 people in this mob. The judge, everyone agreed. So they're at Masonic Lane. I'm like, wow, Masonic Lane. That's not a coincidence.
It sounds like sacrifice.
So when you start peeling the layers off and see some of the things that our people were being subjected to, see, we got programmed in our mind that lynching is just hanging someone on a tree or hanging someone. No, lynching is the entire process, right? You could be lynched without dying.
Correct.
Lynching is the entire process. So the Messiah, he was lynched.
Yeah.
In the essence of it, he was lynched. So a key word even in the scriptures, you see the time of sorrow, right? In Matthew's chapter 24, sorrow. The Greek word for sorrow is Odin. And I'm like, wait a minute, Odin, that's Odin. And when you understand in Odin, there's a sacrifice or a ritual that's done to pay homage to Odin. Take an innocent victim, hang them on a tree, take a spear and pierce them, right? You hang them on a tree for 9 days, but you take a spear and you pierce them to bring drama to them, and you begin to do what? Pay homage to Odin. So you start seeing those things, and when I start really delving into the lynchings and all, and see the satanic things that they were doing, like cannibalism, sodomy, taking our body parts and using it for leather, whether it's for a bag, whether it's for a belt, whether it's for shoes, taking our hair, using it as cushion for pillows. But they were doing a lot of satanic rituals on many of our brothers and sisters.
Taking out the teeth, like and George
Washington.
George Washington and using them for dentures. I mean, come on, fam.
You know,
Go ahead.
correct. No, finish what you're saying, brother.
No. I was just gonna. The last thing I was gonna mention was just the gator bait. I mean, using our babies for gator bait for food for an alligator. I mean,
Man.
come on, fam.
Man,
And that wasn't like centuries ago.
that was just less than 100
Less
years
than
ago.
100 years ago, like 1920. I got advertisement for 1920s, 1930s of using our babies for alligator bait.
Yep. And then not to mention, I was watching a show, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but the show that was on Amazon Prime called The Underground Railroad yesterday. When I say I binge watched it from like when I got off from work until like 5 o'clock this morning, it's like 10 episodes. And what's interesting is each time her name, the main character of the of the story is Cora. And it's kind of like a historical fictional type, history type, fictional type deal. It gives you some history there, but it was fiction there based off, the characters. And one of the things they brought up was they would go through each town or each state that she would, well, actually, let me lay the groundwork of it. She was a slave in Georgia, and she was able to get to the Underground Railroad, which was actually a train system, that's fictional. And they would go from state to state. They would tell you her journey from state to state. You in Georgia, she would get the worst form of slavery. Then she got to South Carolina, where she thought she was going to get freedom, and she ended up in a town. And I just want to talk about this. The town where they were telling Black people they were free, they could do whatever they wanted to do, they could have jobs, and it looked like she was in a happy place. And then when she got there, you start digging deep and figuring out she was an experiment. They were experimenting on Black people, giving them vitamins to see if they can pull out the essence. They say, y'all are strong, but we're trying to figure out who are the stronger ones. And it was like an innate power they were looking for within them, but they were giving them like poison to see who could live. So the men were getting sick and dying, but they were also experimenting on the women, messing with their fertility and taking their fertility away. And when I saw that, I thought about the experiments through gynecology. Gynecology came about through what? Black women being experimented on, Black slaves. They had no anesthesia. They had nothing. They had to endure. A lot of women died because of that. And in some cases, as far as the infertility at that time, I don't see them trying to not allow them to be fertile because we were considered to be money. They wanted to breed off of us. But ultimately, you saw the backstory of each state, how they had to endure their own torture, or how they endured torture in each state. And one of the things that was brought, like I said, to my attention, that the experiments they were doing, they did experiments on us. Then once we got done and they were done with slavery, they started doing, they were trying to take fertility away. It's just a lot that they did. And not even a documentary can get in depth. And one of the things I thought about, and I'm going to stop here. One of the things I thought about was some things they can't show on TV, we have no idea about. And I said, there are some horrific things that were done to our people that the history books couldn't document.
Well, to that point, oh, I'm sorry, Susie. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you.
No, you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Even to that point, because I did made posts about that years ago, and I taught it internally about our people were the guinea pigs.
Yep.
We had no legal rights, and some of the horror stories that they were used us for the sake of medicine.
Yep.
Tuskegee was terrible. But
Yes.
some of the things that we were subjected outside of Tuskegee, it'll make Tuskegee look very minute compared to what they were doing, chopping off certain things and cutting out certain portions of our skull, and
Right.
doing the same thing that we see happening to guinea pigs and monkeys and chimpanzees. They were doing the same thing to us, and we had no rights because we were property. We were considered property.
Mm-hmm.
So we had no legal rights. So
Correct.
You're absolutely correct. And that's another area that many truly don't understand. Why do we have a phobia as a people for the medical
Yep.
doctors and all? it's because and I know I mentioned this a number of times, when you study Emory University, the study that they did on proving that traumatic experiences can alter your DNA, your reproductive organs, so that way the generations to come through you may not have gone through what you've gone through, but they still have the responses, have the phobias, so we're dealing with that right now, even though we may not have gone through what our ancestors have gone through, but the phobias is still there.
Yep.
Even though uh, the medical is a perfect example, just what you pointed out. So they did a lot of things to our people that, like you said, if they really just put it all out there, what I shared on the video, the episode 1, that's just a drop in a bucket.
Correct.
That's just a drop in a bucket. And so I have tons of books that I've invested in, like a lot of those images that you see, the lynchings, you're not going to find those on Google. You have to purchase certain books, and they're not cheap. You know what I mean? But I purchased those books just so that way I can make sure I have something to share with our community. So that way, when someone tell you to get over it, you have something tangible to say, how can you get over this right here? This is something you don't get over.
Correct.
This is something that has accountability, or the people should be accountable for committing these heinous crimes.
Yeah, and that's why I appreciated your the amount of time and effort and research you did, Dr. Kelly, as far as the the atrocities that had taken place. Because to your point, a lot of us we don't know the journey that our forefathers had to go through just to get here. One of the things we would talk about is like, it's like, man, you don't realize that you are the descendants of a survivor. Like when you go back in time and you see all the atrocities, I know we're focusing about the stuff that happened here in the States, but even before we got to the States, right? I mean, a lot of us know about the slave ships, but what about before the slave ships? Like on the other side of the waters, I mean, it was a whole batch full of atrocities that happened over there. Even in places like South America, Barbados. One of the things that that I wanted to touch on a little bit. I'm not sure if we'll be able to bring it out, but was just to show people, because to your point, because how they actually viewed us. Like when you look at the like some of the receipts, like those in the receipts in those old books that were published in like the 1800s or older, like in the receipts you'll see them list things like, yes, we got 35 cattle, things of cows and 45 horses, and then they'll list us right next to that.
Yep.
Right. They'll list us right next to that. They'll have numbers in there, and they'll have some other statistics around that. But that goes to show you, to me, like when I saw that explained why in their mind they could take a baby and feed it to an alligator.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So anyway, but that's that I think is that's why I appreciate the amount of work and effort that Dr. Kelly put into it, because this is a story that I think everyone needs to know. Everyone needs to know the struggles that your forefathers went to, even in Savannah, Georgia. Even in Savannah, Georgia, when you're talking about this church that was built by slaves, right? And then here we are, all these years later, trying to change their narrative after they've been, whipped with a cat o' nine tails. And we're trying to change what they believed in, that they grasped onto that pulled them through. Right? It's like, it's not like they were calling out to Allah. I mean, not to throw shade at the other religions, but they weren't calling on that when they was getting beat. They weren't calling on that when they were out there after they worked from can't see to can't see, from sun up to sundown, and then to turn around and then try to build this church in the off time. Right? They weren't relying on that. They weren't relying on Mohammedans and stuff like that. They were calling on the Most High. They were calling on the Messiah's name. Right? And I guess that's why I feel some sort of a way about it, because like after all that they've been through, now you're going to try to come in behind them. Now that they're in the grave, now you're going to try to change the story.
Yep. And the thing is, what's so fun, what makes me cringe was the mindset. They had the mindset of Black slaves don't experience and register pain like white people would. That when I saw that, I was like, wow. I think the doctor out of New York, I think they took his statue down, but his concept of experimenting on us is, oh, they don't feel pain like we do. And they have that mindset now that, they kill us in the streets. They're not like us. Think about the reaction. It's like they're subhuman. They're not human. So they can't fathom how killing us in the street is the same as killing anyone else in the street, because we're not human like them. And that's how they see us. But when I saw that once, and I read it once, that doctors, especially the doctor that I think his name is I think it's Myron Sims, I can't remember. He said that, they don't experience pain like black people, like white people. And I was like, wow. So they had no conscience. They saw us as if we, great example is how breeding in those breeding farms. And if anybody knows anything about dog breeding, you have to be very careful. They try to make sure they don't crossbreed, and
Mm-hmm.
the father doesn't breed with the child. They try to make sure of that. But I mean, sometimes it would happen and you get a bad litter. That's how they did black people in those breeding farms. Like a father could breed with his daughter, or a mother could breed with her son.
And there's actually
So,
accounts of that too. Just what you said, Sissy. I'm sorry.
mhm.
Actual accounts to it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sissy. I just wanted to
No,
say
that's
there's
all I
actual
want to say.
accounts of it.
Hmm. Yep, and that's sad. That yeah, Dr. Sims, he sure did. Out of New York, they took that statue down because he was like, black people don't experience pain. I think it's in New York. Is it in New York, y'all? Check and make sure. But yeah, and it's just the breeding farms. I know Tariq came out with something. I think everybody's waiting for the documentary on buck breaking. It's just it's sickening. And one of the things that I saw in the show when I watched it yesterday, one of the slave masters was chastising his brother to say, we don't allow them to have events and festivals. They just need to work and go home, pretty much. He said, you don't use them the way they need to be used for. You use some of your best bucks for self gratification, just about. I said, oh, they're trying to throw in quietly bug breaking in a lot of these movies now. I said, wow, wow. Um, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say on that one.
Yeah, that the breeding farms, one of the largest breeding farms was in Richmond, Virginia. Um, and there's a book called The American Slave Trade. I think I posted it probably like about a year back, but it goes into that. It talks about how, like, if you look at the transatlantic slave trade numbers, like on the books, I mean, the U.S. Got very little slaves compared to countries like Brazil. But the reason, part of the justification for that, or what you hear me sometimes say, compensating controls, was that they invested heavily in breeding farms. And that's what you'll read about in that book called The American Slave Trade, because Richmond, Virginia, that area was one of the main areas of breeding farms. And then if you've ever did your DNA through like ancestry.com, and when you run it and you look at the USA, most black people will have this big blob right around Richmond, right? Because I did it, my brother did it, and then some of the other folks did it. It's like, wow, we're related to Richmond slaves. It's like, yep. And if you look at it closely, the center point of that blob is Richmond, Virginia, right? Because unfortunately, it points to us being associated with that breeding farm up in that area. You're on mute, Sissy.
I don't want to stay on this too long, but it's just like one part of that that pained me was when I saw that one slave was like, he did not want to have sex with the other slave woman because he just didn't want to do it. The slave master literally made him do it, and he sat there and watched him.
Well,
But
the image that you see that I use for the advertising for Savannah, you see a woman upside down.
yes,
Actually, she's a 14-year-old girl, right? Who they wanted her to do some things publicly, like reveal herself. And she said no. So what they did was they helped, of course, stripped her, turned her upside down, and began to drop her on her head repeatedly until she died. The incident was reported. Of course, nothing happened to those guys, but the incident was reported. So there's a number of things that was done to our people that was just, that really would bring tears to your eyes. And so this is where, why, when we deal with Savannah, this is why I'm adamant, Benaiah Israel, Moray Brown, and others are adamant that no, I'm not just going to walk away from this. This is not just my heritage. We all have a connection to this location, this church. And so you cannot say you just talking about a language. Any linguist, when you send them, or they ask about the writings, right? If you send them writings, the first thing they're going to ask you is for more information about the location. You can't say that we're just going to separate and say we're just going to focus on the language. No, they want to gather information on the people, the surroundings, the territory. They want to gather information so that way they can better address, or at least they can try to address what they see. So when we deal with Savannah, and one of the things I brought out a year ago is actually a little more than a year ago, down in February of last year, when a few of us went down to Savannah, Moray, Joshua and Moray Mars. We met up down in Savannah. I went to the slave graveyard and had pictures of that. And seeing that lynching tree above our ancestors.
Correct.
Seeing how the graves have been desecrated. They're not even typical graves, truth be told. They were stacking us up on top of one another. Some plantations went as far as, even when their slaves die, they'd take their slaves and take the body and put it on another plantation. They'll swap just to make sure that we can't locate our relatives or chase behind them. So when people tell us, why you guys keep talking about this, that tells me that's an indicator they don't understand history.
Correct.
Because when you start understanding the fullness, like Benaiah pointed out, the voices, there's a reason why that pew, moment you come up the steps, that one pew is right in your face, says Israel. I can give you more on it, but I'm not going to do it here. But it says Israel or Yisrael. So that was a message specifically for our people. And there's warnings on those pews. There's nothing on those pews that say anything about Muhammad. Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. None of that stuff is on there. It's an insult. It's a slap in our face. But when people say that we shouldn't be talking about that, or it doesn't matter, or that, we don't need the pews, we don't need Savannah. If that's the case, why are so many trying to fight for this space right here and come up with these narratives? Why? Because it debunks every talking point that was generated about the Hebrew Israelites. It debunks that Cherry and what's the other guy, Crowdy, created this, like they would call it, refer to it as the grass movement.
Mm-hmm.
This assembly was started in 1773. They weren't even born, and they referring to themselves as Israelites. So it debunks a lot of stuff. So we can't dismiss any part of our history. When we start dismissing part of our history, guess what? We're dismissing a key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and it is a key piece because like in that area in Georgia, South Carolina, Richmond, Virginia, in the research that I have been doing as far as tracing the brews across the waters and stuff like that, and how they landed in Savannah, they landed in South Carolina, they landed in Richmond, Virginia, like we were talking about before, and when you continue to do that research, you are going to end up at that church. And that's what happened, right? I mean, it's to your point, it's not like, at least, for me, I didn't start off looking at the First African Baptist Church. It's just that as I was following the trail, as I was following the evidence led right over there, right? And what I'm appreciative, I'm appreciative to the Heavenly Father for bringing out all this truth, and also pointing me in these different directions. And that is, I appreciate the conversation about the church, because it has revealed so much. Like, so much has, I mean, just like if this whole conversation about the church had never come up, there's some atomic bombs in my repository right now that I may not have had somebody not put up a stink about this church, right? And I was like, well, wait a minute. Well, why are they putting up a stink about this church? Let me spend some time on it and look it up. And then looking it up, I'm like, oh, well, this ties into that, and this and it just, one thing just led to another as far as evidence that's coming out. And that's why I say that put your seatbelts on, because there are some things that will be coming out in the next videos to come that I think will help nip this thing in the bud. And at the end of the day, if you're objective, what I tell people, sit down, get you a piece of paper. On one side of the piece of paper, you can write down all the stuff that we put out, right? All the evidence. And then on the other side of the piece of paper, you write down all the evidence to the contrary. And then you can see for yourself, what's true, what's not. Like things like, all right, so in Savannah, we know for sure that there was a large Hebrew community in Savannah right around the church. That is a fact. No one argues about that. We don't see a large Arabic community around the church, near the church. Matter of fact, in Savannah, period, right? And one of the things that people bring up when they bring up these examples of people that speak Arabic, they're not in the neighborhood. Like, they're down the street and around the corner, right? Just stuff like that. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you were to sit down and put that stuff on a comparison chart, you would see, obviously, these people were Hebrew, and the things that we're telling you is stacking up.
And one thing to add to what Benaya pointed out earlier too, when he brought up the Gullah. Now, I'll give one little nugget here. I'm not going to give him any more nuggets for the stuff that we going to release here. Is still away, right? If you go to Hebrews, not Hebrews, but Exodus chapter 21, verse 16, right? And I'll read it real quick. Matter of fact, Sister, if you want to bring it up so that people can see for themselves.
What do you want me to bring up?
Exodus chapter.
Oh, okay. Exodus
21.
Exodus. Exodus. Let me go my blue letter Bible. Hold on. Alrighty. Exodus. Chapter again, what? 20 what?
21.
Okay.
Verse 16.
Alrighty, here we go. All right, let me share my screen. Y'all know I move slow. Here we go. All right, we're here.
Now you see what it says, verse 21, verse 16. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. Prior to here, you see the laws of indentured servitude. This is the law against chattel slavery.
Correct.
Right? So if anyone from any community to try to tell you that the Bible promotes chattel slavery, they are lying to you, family.
Correct.
In the words of Benaya, they are lying to you, family. Right? That's one of Benaya's signatures right there, right? So you see here, this is the law against chattel slavery. Now, are you able to, like, I'm not familiar with the Blue Letter Bible, but does it allow you to click on a word and it gives you the definition of that word?
Or it might be a Strong's button up there. You might have to click on like the actual verse and then click on Strong's. I don't know. There you go.
Yep. Which word?
Go down. I mean, go up. Go up. You see Ganav, right?
Yes, yep.
Click on that. It should give you the definition of it.
It won't. Hold on.
Or the
Where it's
Strong's
at
number. See the Strong's
1589.
number?
Yep.
Yeah, the Strong's
I-
number.
Right there.
Click on that. Now, can you read the definition to the people?
So it says steal away, carry
Stop
away,
right again. Stop right there. Read it
steal
again.
away, steal away.
Steal Away is a popular song among our people. Is it a coincidence that the Hebrew word for steal away is ganab? And they're singing a song that points to the law of kidnapping.
Correct.
The law of what? Stealing away.
Wow.
See, it's a lot deeper than what we can ever imagine. Is it a coincidence we have our ancestors who identified themselves as being Israelites? We have one of the most popular songs. And when we look at that song and we understand the law of indentured servitude, Exodus chapter 21, verse 16, you click on steal, and what do you see? Steal away, Ghana.
Steal away.
See, family, we put a lot of work into this. This is not something that, we just by osmosis, this came about. This is the Holy Spirit leading us. Like Benaiah pointed out earlier, the Most High chose us to do this. It's no coincidence that our uncle, Dr. James Wesley Carr, and others that was connected to this assembly. So these are a lot of things that we're going to be bringing out in the future. But I wanted to make sure you guys understand that it's more to it than what you can ever imagine. This is why we're not allowing for our history to be changed before our eyes. This is just not going to happen.
Correct. And what's so interesting is it's no longer a watering down what it is, because history as we know it, American history, watered down slavery. Slavery was just a segment in time. They took people and they made the plantation look like it was a happy plantation. They was just putting in work. And then next thing you know, civil rights. And that's how history taught.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Now the Most High is revealing what really happened. And this is what they don't want to talk about. They definitely don't want to talk about this, because this right here shows the true evil nature, because they made it seem as if, like you said, that, we just went and just got him for a little bit. And then guess what? We let him free. Abraham Lincoln did what he did and he was free. They were free and they can carry on. No, that's not the true history. The Most High is exposing the true history. What really happened behind the scenes, because if you look at indentured servitude, usually it was a contract. It was an agreement of to say that I'm gonna pay this debt. And I hear echo, I'm sorry. I'm gonna pay a debt. And once I've paid that debt by way of me working for you, you're gonna release me. But with that, you're gonna give me some form of restitution so that I can be able to take care of myself, because I've worked for you 7 years to pay a debt off. That's how it is. And when you even look at the book of Philemon with Paul talked about how to treat your slave. You treat him like he's a brother. It was never meant to be that. And they twisted it. And it's a great point that you brought up, Exodus 21, 16? Yeah. When it talks about death. So this nation is based off the stealing of a people. So this nation has blood on their hands and they have the curse of death on them.
Yeah, and that's why they want you to forget it.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, cuz.
No, go ahead, Benai. I want you to lose your thought.
Oh, I was gonna say that, and that's why they want you to forget it. But you touched on something that I think is going to be epic here in some of these other follow-up videos. I actually like the Hidden Hebrews video as well, and that is because if you ever kind of follow the history to date as far as like the Spanish and Portuguese brews, and you've heard me say, if you've gone to some of these conferences that I was at, you'll hear me say, always use the old books, because at one point in time in the old books they're black, and all of a sudden they changed and the brews are white, right? And then as time went on, we started to see that flip occurred sometime in the 1850s. And I did a video, a live out in front of the Savannah First African Baptist Church. And I told the listening audience, I said, we've kind of narrowed it down. It's like right around 1850, right around 1850. So as we kept going, doing research and stuff like that. And we came across a pattern. I mean, we started to see why this happened. Like what caused this transformation of, people, even in the census, like they're magically going from black to white and stuff like that. And it speaks to what you were speaking to, Sister E, about this restitution. And it has to do with the events of when Abraham Lincoln said, "Hey, you're free," right? 1865, right? That was the big date. Emancipation Proclamation, slaves were set free. But that set forth a cascade of events that would shape, our history, for years and years to come. And that's one of the things that I look forward to talking about and digging into, like, the Reconstruction period. Yes, sister, if you were to look at the U.S. Congress, like right after slavery, it was black. You had all kinds of black folks in there. But then you've heard me. I'm not sure if I did a post or something like that on it, but then you see the KKK slide right on in there. Like 1865, we were free. KKK 1860, 1866, right? And then, like I said, there was a cascading of events that happened. That there was laws that were put in place. There were persecutions that occurred. All the lynchings and the hangings we were talking about, and then all of a sudden stuff switched from black to white, and then we went from being in Congress to not being in Congress, right? There's a critical period in there that has very a huge impact to so-called black African Americans.
What's so interesting, and I know you want to jump in, Pastor Kelly, and I want to bring up a point that Benaiah, and I think you brought it up as well. These movies now, have you noticed, started talking about curses on our people? And not delving into the curse of Canaan or Ham, but dealing with the curses, dealing in Deuteronomy, because the movie I saw yesterday talked about the same thing, curses on the black race, because they didn't obey the commandments of God. And I sat there and I said, even Hollywood is dropping, you know how they work, Hollywood, but they're still dropping nuggets here and there. And you're saying people know that it's true. I mean, it's too obvious. When you look at history and when you look at the Bible, it's not pointing to any other people but us. When you look at 400 years of oppression, it's no group I'm talking about in the world that can fit those. I'm not talking about 200 years. We're not talking about from Abraham up to Moses. We're talking about 400 years of people being afflicted, because people love to say, "Oh no, it was during the time of Egypt." But when you look at it, it was 430 years from Abraham up to Moses, right? So because of that, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. The only people it fit is us. And you're talking about 400 years of slavery and oppression.
And see, the key to that prophecy too is, we know that chattel slavery began prior to, but the key to that prophecy is the United States, because many will argue like, hey, well, the 400 years doesn't fit where we are right now. Where we are right now is because when we look at it, we've been enslaved. Chattel slavery, at least this portion of the slavery, began in 1452. So we're dealing with centuries prior. No, when we really look at it, where the prophecies, when you read into Daniel, when it deals with the beast, it talks about Russia. It talks about China. Even the 3 territories that Russia took from China, right? It talks about Britain and the United States, right, separating itself from Britain, as far as the lion with eagle's wings, right, and separating. So we see all of that within the holy text, right? The prophecies are there, and the key is the birth of the United States, and that's really the point that I want to make. I'm just checking my input here. But it's just so many nuggets here that, like you pointed out, when we look at uh, our people, we fit the bill. Period. You can't take away from it. But we are the people of the book, and that's why we're getting so much opposition because of that. Because we are the people of the book, and there's an accountability. No matter how many times many want to kick the cans down, down the curb or down the road, so to speak, there's still an accountability. It's called reparations, whether you agree with it or not. There's still an accountability. When that bomb was dropped on the Japanese Hiroshima, guess what? The United States took care of them, gave them free steel and everything, helped them rebuild. Pretty much every country that they gone to war with, they helped rebuild, with the exception of whose community? Our community. So it's just so many different layers to it, and just to the point that you guys have made, even with the movies, I believe the Most High is touching the hearts of a lot of people to say, hey, it's time to really take the discussion to here. And we're seeing the discussion before our eyes. Even the movie, the series that you told me about, Sister E, them that I watched, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. When I got to the ninth episode, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That's right. They literally going in on about Deuteronomy 28.
Yep, that's the one that you and Benai both hit on when y'all did those lives. I was like, and I think someone else talked about it. I think Tayu talked about it as well. Them hit some. I'm talking about they threw some nuggets out there where you was just like, y'all just gonna put this all out here now, huh? Okay, in Hollywood, and it's becoming a trend. Like the show, the Underground Railroad, they talked about it, and she was reading scriptures and talking about your people because you did not follow the commandments. I was like.
Well, see, too, I look at it too, similar to like Daniel and his friends, that we have people in high places that's trying to make us aware as a people. So the Most High has people like with Elijah, 7,000 people that that are in places that we'd be surprised where they are, and they're really starting to be bold about really bringing out this information.
Yeah, I can see a writer sitting down saying, "All right, so I want the one of the black female characters to say this. All this time you spent trying to blind me, prevent us from seeing ourselves."
Yeah,
right. It's like, what? It doesn't make any sense. No. Just put it in the movie. Just trust me. Just put it in there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And it was another interesting thing too. Even when we talk about the episode 1, is just how I was able to take George Floyd crying for help, crying for his life, and take images of our brothers and sisters being lynched over a century prior, but his cry still matched the photos.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's so powerful, Dr. Kelly, because even though some things have changed, but some things haven't changed. And that's why a lot of folks are. It's almost like you have two parties, right? There's one side is looking at all these atrocities, and that's part of why I think that a lot of this stuff is coming out is that so people can be aware, so that when judgment pulls out or when that bill comes due, like you say, because it's like it's not a matter of whether or not it will. It's like it will come due eventually, right? You building up all this credit on this credit card, and this check about to come in the mail. That people would be aware of why, and that's actually one of the reasons why I was talking to Elder Maury Yahusha about it, and that's like the reason why the movie is coming out. It's like the movie and all these other videos and that we're putting forth. They're witnesses against these countries. They're saying it's almost like I liken it to like a court case, right? You know, you've gone through the trial, the verdict is in, right? You gotta pay some time, but then right when they're getting ready to render out the judgment, they have to read off the crimes that was done. Like, so, all right, so for robbing the bank at such and such and such, and doing this and doing that and doing this and that, and then they give you the sentence, and that's how I feel like the space and time that we're in now is like all these videos are coming out, these movies are coming out, and it's reading off the crimes that was done.
Correct.
All right, so you did the gay debate, right? You did the hanging on and the lynching, like you was dropping them on trees once every so often, right? You were making like Dr. Kelly said, you were making shoes, right? You're making belts out of it, and you were taking the hair, you're taking the teeth out, right? You were eating them, because that's another thing that people don't really realize. It's like, yes, they were eating them. I mean, they were. There's a book called The Delectable Negro that kind of sort of touches on it, but there's some other materials that's out there. But yes, that was a thing, right? So that, you know, it's almost like you said, you're getting ready to chastise your child. You got to let them know why. Like, you know, this reason why we're doing this is because you did this, and that, and then the judgment comes. So that's why I think that the time and space that we're in right now is that we're just kind of reading off the crimes. And then I think, you know, just my belief, I think you'll see some judgment start getting poured out on these nations.
Well, I believe so, to your point, Benaya, because one thing we have to do, and I think we've been programmed to look at the prophecies with the oppressors, the people that have committed these crimes against our people. Now we have them on the same side of the boat with us, or same side of the flood with us. You know, when we look at, for example, when Christ talks about in Matthew chapter 5 about loving our neighbor, but also praying for and loving our enemy. That's not a proper transliteration, right? What should be in that text is love those that are in the opposite tribe as you, because that's when you really pull the layers of that text, right? So when we look at prophecy, when we look at, for example, Revelation, we know that it's dealing with Yah's people. It's not a generic text. It's not generalized. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm being insensitive to some of our brothers and sisters and those that are still in Christianity, those that are still in Catholicism, but we have to be real about it. We have brothers and sisters that are there. They're lost. They just don't know. They're lost. While others that are there have fallen away because the truth has been revealed to them and they reject it, right? But when we look at Christianity, when we look at Catholicism, when we look at Judaism, when we look at and start pulling back the layers of like the Asiento, right? An agreement that the Roman Catholics facilitated on how to divide the spoils among all the nations that was involved in enslaving our people. You know, how is it that we are praying for the very governmental system that they use to keep reminding us that we at the bottom of the totem pole? You know, we've been taught to process a holy text that is given to a specific group of people, and that's the Israelites. And now we're taking this text and generalizing it and lumping everyone up under it. So Christianity, all these different religious systems, is on record for committing heinous crimes against our people. I just read the scripture to you about the curse, the penalty that comes with the territory of kidnapping someone, and not just holding on to them, but also selling them, but kidnapping them, taking them against their will. There's a price, there's a penalty that comes with the territory. So again, they can't keep kicking it down the road. Like Benaya pointed out, the debt is, you're going to have to pay the debt. And so back to my point with Christianity and Catholicism, no matter how they want to spin it and tell you hey, Christianity is over here, but Catholicism is over here. Christianity is the daughter of Catholicism. You just can't get away from it, right? But they together, because at the time there was one system. It wasn't Christianity over here and Catholicism over here. 1452, actually going back to 1442, right? You didn't have Christianity. Actually, the term Christianity really didn't start coming about. In this, anyway, I'm not getting into all of that. But at that time, there were one church, right? This before the Reformation movement began in like the 16th century. They were all in agreement, and even with the Reformation movement, it wasn't about them fighting to free us. They had a disagreement on a doctrine, the letter of indulgence. That's what it was about. But I said all of that to say that, these religious systems have enslaved us, and now we're using these same religious systems to teach us what love is, to teach us what mercy is, to teach us what grace is, to teach us what the Messiah truly is. Just a little thought I want to share on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Chichi.
I got an article I came across and I just found it. I'm gonna send it to you, Pastor Kelly. You may want to use it, and it talks about a child, 10-month-old child on the slave ship, and how the child was tortured. And I found it. I had to cut my camera off for a second because I was trying to find it. I'll send it to you. You could probably use it, but yeah, y'all got to judge this.
Remember Birth of a Nation, right?
Got to judge this.
Remember the movie Birth of a Nation, right? That one key scene that probably really gone, kind of went past people pretty quick. Remember when they went into the overseer's room and how they took the little girl out of his bed? See, we don't talk about the pedophilia. We don't talk about those things that our children were being subjected to. Those things are real. I have documents on that. I have proof on that.
Man.
Can you imagine, a little kid being molested and there's nothing you can do per se?
Yep. That's all I can say is, you read, it's an article and I send it to you. It's
okay.
Yeah, when I read it again, I say he gonna have to judge it. I'm sorry, a nation can't build history off of torture of not just grown people but of children, and in the worst way. And I'm not. No torture is good, and let me clarify that. But boiling people, boiling children, mothers watching their children being boiled alive.
In some cases, they were even forcing us to eat our own people.
Correct.
It's so many different layers to it. Like, and I encourage everyone to look up Sam Holt. I could give other names, but Sam Holt. They literally burnt him alive, chopped up his body, sold it as souvenirs. They ate him.
Wow.
They ate him.
Yep.
It was a mob of almost between 5,000 to 10,000 people. They ate him.
Yep. Wow.
And these weren't just like many would just refer to, hey, they were just the KKK. No, you're talking about doctors, lawyers, police officers, judges.
Whole families. Hopefully. Oh, did we lose your audio, Pastor Kelly?
Oh, no, I'm still here.
Okay. But yeah, it's like, whole families. It wasn't like it was just to your point, like it was just one part of the, one person, right? Or one group. It was like whole families. This was a nation thing. And to your point, sister, as far as like the judgment, you're right. I mean, the pattern in the Bible is like everyone that's laid their hands on Israel. So, Israel would do bad, right? Most High would send a, nation to judge them, right? But then when they would come out of that judgment, like that nation would get judged, like every single time. Like nobody's has been able to escape that cycle. And then I guess, to your point, Pastor Kelly, you was talking about like, Daniel and those books like that. Because people will say, well, why don't you? I mean, but you're supposed to, pray that they come to the truth and forgive them and stuff like that. Well, I mean, I believe this is in Isaiah. It does talk about that the Most High would have forgiven them. Like it's almost like in that space of time, they've had time to repent. And when it talked about like the daughter of Babylon, it was like, I would have, forgiven you, but it's almost as if they continued down that path. And you can see that this nation has continued down the path. I mean, people are still getting shot in the back. People are still, unarmed Black folks are still getting persecuted. Right? It hasn't stopped. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that just has to happen. And one of the things that we were kind of telling our brothers and sisters is like, prepare yourself for it. I mean, the scriptures talk about a time that's unlike any other time to come. Right. And, we sit here in our comfortable chairs in our comfortable houses, looking back at across the span of history saying, wow, whew, I'm glad I wasn't on that ship, or whew, I'm glad I wasn't around like you was talking about, Pastor K, like around the 1920s when all that crazy stuff was happening. Whew, I'm glad, I'm here now, right? During 2021. But you could be sitting at the precipice of one of the worst times that have ever been, seen on this earth, right? And that's why I tell us, like, if we're there, prepare yourself. And that's why, like, this whole, all the discussion about, is it America? Is it not America? Is it a 400? Is it not 400? Everybody is going to find out here real soon, right? And it's going to be a non-discussion. That's why I don't even like really, like getting into it about that, at this day and age, because I'm like, just look outside, man. I mean, just look outside. Is it normal? Is it not normal? Because I try to boil it down to a super simplistic comparison, and most people will say, "Oh, you know what? Yeah, it's not normal." So, prepare yourself, family. Like I said, just prepare yourself spiritually, physically, for what's to come.
Absolutely. And for those that are asking about Sam's name, his last name is spelled Holt, H as in hotel, O as in Oscar, L as in Lima, T as in Tom. So Sam Holt. So you can look him up and you'll see plenty of information on him. And actually, I have one of my books. This book right here has some good information about the lynchings. Also has a number of images in this. I'm just showing one of many books that I have here. So you can look this up. This is actually Without Sanctuary. That's what it's called, Without Sanctuary. So you can purchase this book. It's probably going to cost you anywhere between $70 to $100, but it's worth the investment. But yeah, I tell you guys, just like I said, even thinking about the narrative of the goal behind the whole series that we're working on, family, and the things that we've done in the past is to help, is to really make our community more aware, not just our community, but family members or friends or those that just want to know the truth, because this information is there, but unfortunately we've been so how can I put it, numb to it. We become very dismissive towards it, so we have to really be be mindful and not get caught up in these narratives. And so you have people purposely that want to kind of muddy the water to make you say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to mess with that, I'm not going to go near it. No, this is your history, this is your heritage, this is who you are. Whether, and I don't even like to say good history or bad history. History is history, and there's a lot of information there that we can pull from and extract information out. breadcrumbs to really help us where we are right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead, Cici.
No, I was just agreeing. I was agreeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, Pastor Kelly, I think there's a testimony to be had. Because one of the things that, when I was looking back through all the history, especially whether it be with the church and these other bits and pieces of our history, across the world, the testimony is that you're still here. The testimony is that when you read about the narrative about slave ships or mobs going through black neighborhoods, I'm trying to think of Black Wall Street, the Devil's Punch Bowl, Red Summer, Pastor Kelly?
Yeah, Red Summer, 1992.
Yeah, Red Summer, like all these events, like all these bad things that happen, you're still here. Like you made it. Like you are the descendant of the ultimate survivor. Like you went through all that stuff. I mean, you're literally the descendant of those who made it across the water. You're literally the descendants of those who made it through the 1940s, right? Because if they went through and just destroyed like all the black folks, you wouldn't be here, right? And that's why I say it's a testimony. It's people would say like don't worry about it, just forget it. It's water under the bridge. But I guess I'm of a different mindset in that. One of the things I think you need to know the struggles. You need to be aware of the struggles of what your family went through. You need to know the successes, right? The accomplishments that they've gone through, like, and to be able to appreciate it, so that when people do bring it up, that you can give it the proper, respect that it's due. You know what I'm saying? Like, because right now, those who don't know, they're speaking against it, and they're, not necessarily standing up for, our forefathers that are, that can't really do it right now. So, but yeah, I yield back, Sister E.
Yep. I mean, it's just so much right now that the Most High is honestly, like you said, Benaiah, he's showing them things to get them to repent, and they don't see it. He's literally playing back. So you did this. So you did this. So, and people are like, oh no, you shouldn't worry about what your ancestors did in the past is in the past. God won't judge you for what your ancestors did. If you're living off of the slave master's wealth and have not paid any restitution to a group of individuals that this country was built off of them, that's still walking in unrepentance. You can say all day long, oh, it was in the past. My ancestor had nothing. I had nothing to do with what my past ancestor did, but you're living off the wealth of this nation. The curse or the judgment is deeper than an individual. It has to do with a nation. God dealt with in nations in most cases. And when you look in Revelation, he deals with nations. And when you see it, you like, it's deeper than what you think. And people love to say, oh no, that's in the past. I had nothing to do with it. Some people won't feel the wrath because Most High will give them grace and give them grace and mercy. But ultimately, it deals with the heart of the matter. Ask yourself this question: why are we having a battle with white evangelicals because we say Christ is black?
Well,
true essence of racism is showing. So
yeah, it's that spirit. Remember of J. Edgar Hoover, the fear of the what Messiah, right? When we start understanding and going to the details of that, they understand the Messiah. They're fighting against the Messiah. They understand that the Messiah, there is a Messiah, the Messiah rather. I don't like to just say a. There is the Messiah that's going to come up or come back for our people. That's going to rally us together. So the fear is a Messiah that looks like us versus a Messiah that looks like them. It's a fact. Moses was given two signs for Israel that needed to believe, right? They knew the Most High's literal name, but they didn't experience the reputation behind it, right? That's where you get the Hebrew word sham or shem. It means reputation. So the Most High gave them two signs. One was a staff, and if you study the history of Israel, right, you'll see that, especially when we deal with Judah, right, that staff was part of their identity. Judah gave up his identity for a moment of pleasure with Tamar, right? That's scripture. We also see that David, when King Saul wanted to give him his armor, he said, "Hey, I can't roll with this. It's not proven." So David pulled out the very things that identified him being a descendant of Judah, his identity, his shepherd's bag and everything, right? So Moses was given a sign of his identity. Also, he was given a sign of his skin complexion, right? Then we see in Revelation chapter 1, the same thing. The Messiah is given, the Most High is given the skin complexion of the Messiah to his, for his prophet to write it down. So that way, what? It's a sign for us today, for those that are struggling with their consistency. Because belief, what it means in Hebrew, aman, it means consistency. To get us back to that place of consistency. So the skin complexion was written down to show that it's a sign that the Messiah look just like you and I. So the fear of the Messiah coming from our community is real. And that's why we see the things, that the levels of deception. That's why we see, even within the government itself, that fear echoed.
Yep, totally agree, cuz. Yeah, I don't know if you all seen that. There's a movie or a series on, I guess it's a movie / series on HBO Max called Exterminate the Brute, or Exterminate All the Brutes, or something like that.
And I gotta watch that, because you mentioned that to me too. I'm gonna watch.
You have to see it.
That's on my binge day tomorrow. I'm gonna binge tomorrow.
What is that? What is it? And thank you, Eric Tinsley, for your super chat. So what is it called?
Exterminate the Brutes. And actually, let me HBO.
Show it to me, because
trying to
something else for me to binge watch. And I go to bed at 5 a.m.
Yeah, because they in that series, he touches on the dark history of the country. I mean, he talks about how it was founded. He talks about how it was founded upon genocide. Some of the things that I've seen in when reading these old books. I feel like I really haven't done a good job of bringing that forward, because in these old books, it was literally like they would show up in like these Central American countries, right, or these Central South American countries, and they would be in the books would talk about how they would be flourishing, like millions of people in these towns, and they would obliterate them to the point where there were official communications back to the king and queen complaining about it. And when they said, hey, they're just taking these people out, and they started pulling numbers. I think some number was like 6 million people. It's like they just destroyed like 6 million people, and they named off a couple of countries, and they said in Brazil and these other places they killed off more than that. And that's why I say, like, we don't know that, like we don't know like the judgment that's being stored up, and it's supposed to be to the double. But this movie Exterminate the Brute touches on some of that stuff. Oh, there you go. Exterminate All the Brutes. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. And I mean, he tells it like it is. I mean, he shows like how a lot of our history has been romanticized. We'll talk about Columbus and talk about how he came across the waters, but won't talk about how he too attacked the natives and did all this bad stuff to him. So yeah, check it out, fam, if you get a chance, because the fact that it's on HBO Max is mind blowing.
Man, I love HBO Max. I'm sorry, I watch everything on HBO Max and Prime. So, but yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that. Something else for me to binge watch starting tonight. So I will be up, because I'm always game for true history. Just like with that documentary I saw, and it talked about slavery, and it's like, I think it's the true. Hold on one second, I have background noise here.
And while she's doing that, because what's your thoughts on like some of the the media at that time, dealing with the minstrels and so forth. What's your thoughts on that?
What do you mean, like back in the 1800s, or not sure what your question was?
Yeah, like kind of some of the stuff that I brought out in the documentary about like the Agatha Christie and some of the other books and some of the the things that was popular at that time. I mean, because when you start pulling the layers off,
Yes, sir.
um, 10 N words. I don't like
Yep.
to say it because you know how we go. So I just say N word. But that was popular. That wasn't just like designated to one thing. That was like popular across the board.
That was the norm, cuz you know what? It's funny because so when I was a kid, we was always outside, playing basketball, throw up tackle, whatever. We'd be out in the street riding bicycles, from sun up, sundown, we'd be outside, especially during summertime. And in Georgia and Atlanta, we get that hot southern heat, hot and humid.
Yeah. That do the right thing.
You know what I'm saying? And when the ice cream man would come down the street, we could be in the middle of a throw up tackle game, right? And we would hear that. We would stop. Everybody, you would see like this mob of black folks just disappear into their houses, sprinting top speed. For me, I would bust through the door and sprint up the steps and go to my dad. And I could, because I was out of breath, I could really only tell my dad like two words. I say, "Dad, ice cream, man, coming." And he would point upstairs and say, "Son, go upstairs and get my wallet." So I sprint upstairs, get his wallet, jam his wallet into his hands, and he would dig in, and you could hear the ice cream man was coming faster and faster. He was coming closer and closer because you could hear the music getting louder and louder. He's like, "Dad, hurry up, hurry up." He's fumbling. He's taking too long. And you could tell that he passed by the house. And so finally he shoved like a 10 in my hand or a 20, depending on how much he had in his wallet. I would snatch it, boom, bust out the door, run down the street. And you talk about 4.0 speed. Just put a ice cream man in front of a black boy in the South, you would see us a sprint.
Oh,
So sprinted, hawked him down, and finally he put on the brakes, and we would get our ice cream. But the reason why I bring up that story is because of the song that ice cream man played, that we were excited to run down this ice cream man, that he felt that it was necessary for him to play this song as he rolled through this neighborhood of black boys, of black people. And if you don't know it, it goes something like do 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 do. Did you know that is one of the racist songs?
That's right.
That talks about black people. I mean, really, it's not. It's about watermelon. Yep. Because it starts off saying, "Oh, watermelon here! Come and get your watermelon, your ice cream, black, Negro or N-word, right? It's your ice cream, your watermelon." And when I finally realized that, man, I was hurt. I was like, "Oh man, we were running head over heels for this ice cream man, and he had the nerve to play it in our neighborhood, But it speaks to some of the stuff that you was bringing out, Pastor Kelly. Like a lot of the stuff that we have affiliations with, that we have remembrance about. A lot of this stuff was derogatory, right? Back in the day.
And it's what's interesting is that they use this to help their children learn how to count.
Yep. Thank you, Sheila Jackson, for your super chat.
Think about how many times we done did it. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a piggy by his toe. If you holler, let him go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And we're doing that to what? Cancel someone's foot from being connected. So that way, the last person has to be the one that chase everybody. Hide, go, seek. That's hide and go seek is what? That's a literally parallel to the slave chasers. You are that person searching for those that are what? Hiding.
Yep.
But eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch an N-word by the toe. It's so many things out there, like not Hangman, but Monopoly. Monopoly, the actual original game was the N-word, right? it was based upon us. You know, you can look up the images yourself, family. You'll see the N word for Monopoly. You'll see the original. You'll see
Was
Sears
it
right on the face of it.
was it in Napoli?
They should have called it that, right? You know, so it's so many different things. And like when you look at that period, and I think, and when I was in school, you had to read Agatha Christie books. They made us read her books, and we had to do papers on it and everything. And to know that, you know, her books originally was labeled 10 N words. You know, so we singing songs of our demise. We singing in, you know, basically Deuteronomy chapter 28, right? The byword, the proverb, and all those songs that's made about us. We literally can say that we're the only people that actually live this thing out to a T. Sissy, your mic.
I was just agreeing. I'm sorry. Correct. I said I agree. I mean, when you look at the things that we do, now all of a sudden they want to take the imagery off of things like ancient mama, pancake mix. But now it's not politically correct. Look, y'all been everything about this country is politically incorrect when it comes to me and my people. So where's my check so I can bounce? That's my mindset now. Like, if you erased everything in reference to racism in this country, you would literally just erase the country itself.
You have dirt
There
and
would be
grass.
no country. So, I mean, there's nothing you can do. You can take away the pancake mix. You can take away Uncle Ben. You can take away all these things. But let's look at the true dark history of this country. I was delving into this other documentary. It's called America's Hidden History. Since we're talking about America's Hidden Stories. And it explains and it's on Prime. And if you look at it, look at the one where it deals with, where is it? Here it is. The slave trade. It's a series, and it's one that just deals with slave trade. And it goes back into your point, Pastor Kelly. Look at the timeline for the 400 years. How the timeline and the 400 years correlate to each other. Because you're talking about a document talking about the institution of this country, which was the first constitution that was written in Virginia. Right after that, it was documented in like July. I think around August is when they brought in their first shipment of slaves at the same time.
And
So
it's
it's
documented.
deeper.
Yeah, like you said, sis, is documented. And no matter what many would say, even the country had grants given out for those that was teaching the 400 years. You know, so you can't get around it. And that's why we're subjected to a lot of ridicule because of what we're bringing out.
Yeah.
So the playbook is, if you can't beat them, muddy the waters so that way no one else would join them.
Correct.
You know, instead of beat them, join them. Actually, is if you can't beat them, make things so ugly that no one else would join them.
And that's it. Make the 400 years, make DNA, make the pews, make all these things so bad that these Israelites are afraid to say it. I believe in the 400 years. I believe in the Deuteronomy curses. I believe in all that. I believe it relates to us. It doesn't stop me from saying what I'm saying. It is what it is. You don't have to believe it or not. And that's the mindset when you start looking at doctrines, Calvinism, white evangelicalism, all this stuff. They pretty much is built upon you believe what we believe or you out. And that's the mindset.
Well, you know what?
Groupthink.
I'm not going to spoil any movies or any videos with this statement, but I will just drop this nugget. So, because you brought up DNA, and so one of the things that how can I put it? You know, to your point, because a lot of people try to muddy the waters as far as DNA is concerned, but I'll tell you what I did. I'll share this with you. So, because I've used like DNA services like Ancestry.com. I've used GEDmatch and some of these other ones out there. Genographic.com, that's like National Geographic's one, and African Ancestry. I mean, just kind of use an assortment of DNA companies. And one of the services that these DNA companies will do is that when you take your DNA test, they'll give you a list of all the people that match your DNA, right? And they'll group them. They'll say, hey, these are your first cousins, and that's how I found maids and and family. And it's like, and hey, these people are your third cousins. These people are your fourth cousins. These people, all the way down the list, right? And so one of the exercises that I did was, especially with all the testing that all the history that I've been doing with Spanish and Portuguese, I started looking through my list for Spanish and Portuguese names. I was like, and every time I see a Spanish name, I was like, oh, that's a Sanchez or a Nunez in there. I was like, well, let me contact them. Let me just shoot them an email, just random emails. Like, more than likely they won't reply, because you get this email from this person you don't know, right? So I did an email blast. I just went through my list, picked out names that kind of sort of, maybe they looked a little Hebrew, maybe they looked a little Spanish, maybe they looked a little Portuguese, shot them an email. So, so I come back and then I have this thing sitting in my inbox and I open it up. And the email that I sent out was, hey, I see we're cousins. I noticed that you have a high amount of Moroccan DNA in your profile. I was like, do you have any Jewish ancestry in your profile? And one of the ones I got back was like, hey, well, thanks for reaching out, brother. It's funny you should mention that. Yes, I actually do have. I just found out that I do have brew, or they said ish ancestry in my profile. He's like, not only that, but I'm in the process of getting readmitted back into the Portuguese assembly in Portugal. He's like, I have already been pre-approved to be accepted in there, and I'm just waiting for the final stuff to go through. So I say that to say this, that if people in your profile are being accepted back, are being officially recognized as Spanish, as Portuguese, based on DNA, right? By default, that includes you, right? By default, that includes you. And it also clears up a lot of the stuff with DNA. And like I said, the only reason why I'm dropping that is because that is just the tip of the iceberg, because based off of what we're getting ready to drop. Because I mean, DNA will play a key part in this as far as that's concerned, but we also have other stuff. But that's why I say, like, people that are kind of setting themselves as an adversary to a lot of this truth that's coming out, they're getting ready to get steamrolled. I mean, I don't want to sound like confident or cocky or anything, but just knowing the evidence that's out there and knowing that we approach this like a court case, like we just put out evidence after evidence after evidence, and knowing what the case is against you being the people or you being not the people. You being the people is about, it's going to be hard for anybody to objectively, it's already hard for anybody to objectively deny it, but it's really going to get worse, just based off of what's coming down the pipeline.
Sissy, your mic. You go off for 2 weeks and you don't know how to operate your stuff no more. What is going on? We got to keep
sorry.
We was about I'm telling you, we was about to send the Eddie Kane group out there to come and get you out of hiding. No, not hiding, but hibernation.
I sure was in hibernation.
Chilling. It was like, man, we about to send the 5 heartbeats. We about to go 5 heartbeat Eddie Kane on you. About to send, you're gonna have people knocking at your door. You know what I mean? Hey, Eddie, you missed another session, Eddie.
That is too funny, because you were sending messages. You going live? I was like, no, not tonight.
Because she was so hesitant about doing lives. We were talking about doing something Thursday. I was like, and you're like, no, you go ahead and do it. I was like, no, you let go of it. No, you do it. I'll wait. I'll change the date. She was like, no, you do it. I was like, no. I said you gave up too quick, too easy. That means you're supposed to do it.
Oh, fam, I have been in hibernation, so I just been tired. I've been like, I am not here for it this week. It's been rough this week, y'all. Whoo, it ain't been bad though. I don't want to say it's to be like, whoo, Sister Eve. No, it's been good. It's just been long. So and Pastor Kelly has been like, so when you going live? I'm like, no, I don't plan on. Well, let's go live. And it's like, not here for it. I just want to go home. I just want to go to bed. Every night is like, I'm going to bed. Other than last night, I ended up staying up to 5 a.m. and then I'm doing a live tonight. Man, it's just been interesting. It's just been interesting. I got videos. I just got a new drone too, so I'm excited about that.
You spying on people?
Huh?
So a new drone? You be spying on people, Sister E?
I'm not gonna be. You go to jail for that. No.
Before you know, we see Sister E all over viral. Sister E, a drone. This went past the DOJ window.
Oh man, my daughter got it for me as a gift. So I'm a geek. I get excited about stuff like that. So I just been chilling. But I mean, this right here was a great conversation. I've enjoyed this. I love talking about history, and I want to talk about the truth of history. I want us to have some more conversations about this because it delves into, and I would love for us to look at each curse and kind of break it down. That would be a great one. That would be a great conversation. It might be one of the kickoff next week, and kind of talk through each curse and kind of look at history and say, okay, yeah, I can see. See, the problem is we're looking at all these curses and people are not getting that visual to say, this one is this one. This makes sense. Like, for instance, JT Preach, me and him gonna have it out too, because every time I invite him to something, he'll be like, I'm coming, and then he's no, I'm just joking. I hope he's watching. But talking about Joel 3 and just, I mean, it's a lot of stuff I want to talk about when it comes to history and Bible prophecy, because you can see it. You can see it playing out, especially with what's going on now over in Israel and what is it? And the Arab nations. So it's interesting. Yes, interesting.
And I was just even watching that too. And family, we have to be careful about media, because I was noticing what Joe Biden was saying, and you hear this a lot. Well, Israel has a right to defend itself. And you keep hearing that narrative. But I'm like, well, what about the other side?
Yeah.
You know, so when you keep saying Israel have a right to defend itself, that gives the impression that the issue is on the other side.
Correct.
That the other side started to fight. You know, so it's just so many layers to it. And actually, yeah, I think that'd be a great discussion. And even going back to what we're working on, I'm telling you, when we deal with Savannah, it's going to be some bombshells dropped about Savannah, you know, and seeing how Savannah played an intricate part of where we are today, the founder of it. So I'm not going to go into too detail of information, as far as in depth of the information, but it's so many layers to it. It's so many layers to it.
It
and
is.
I just think about what Benaiah, I mean, even just what he shared, what the nugget that he dropped at the end of the presentation, to kind of use the voices of the I would say the fathers in Israel voice. I'm not even going to say pastor. I'll say what they were referred to, father in Israel, when they spoke against Islam. They spoke against a number of other pagan or heathen religions. So that was just a mic drop right there to address a lot of the stuff that's been being pushed out there about us.
Yep. Well, before we end, does anybody have anything they want to add? My child just took my charger, and now my laptop is on 10%.
So make it quick.
They move fast. They grab your stuff. You're like, where's my charger? It's already across on the other side of the house. So I'm like,
Yeah, but yeah, just I can't wait. Yeah, because I can't wait till part 2. I'm looking forward to it. Excellent presentation on part 1, and just get ready, fam. We have a lot of new information to share in part 2.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I encourage everyone, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. I'm not saying it because, this collaborative effort that we're all doing it, uh, came together to put this project or this presentation together. But I believe it'll help you. It's going to stir up some things. Make sure you have don't sit in front of your television to watch. You may throw something at it because of it really would tap into your emotions like that. And, but go to it, watch it, and talk about it,
Yep.
share it, share it to your kids, and use it as opportunity to talk with them. And what's this? Going back to this book right here, it's amazing because I just looked it up.
Can you pull the book up so people can see the name on it? I can't see.
You can't see
It's
the name.
the name in the red. What? The name must be in the red
It's
and the
called
black.
Without Sanctuary. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll turn it this way. What's amazing is this book is now $1,000.
Wow.
I didn't know it.
Wow.
This book is now $1,000 on Amazon.
Wow. That's great, man.
So when you see prices going up like that, that tells you those are things that they want to keep hidden from us.
Yep.
So that book now is $1,000. This book, when I purchased this book was like $100. I did not pay $1,000 for this book. So I just want to point that out. But on a final note, family, I want to just say, just hang in there. As Moses said to the children of Israel in Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 to 14, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh. He said, these Egyptians that you see today, guess what? They will not have power over us again. I mean, they may still exist, but they won't have any influence over us. They won't have any power over us. They won't be able to do anything to us ever again. The Most High will fight for us, but we have to hold our peace. We can't go back to the way things were. We can't go back. We can't stay here. We can't continue to try to go back to certain things here in this country. We have to move forward with the things that the Most High want to release to us as a people. So with that being said, I'll turn it back over to you, Sister Eve.
All right. Let me put the name of the book inside of the actual chat. It's Without Sanctuary, Lynching Photography in America. Yep. So with that being said, this is going to be interesting, and it's going to be a deeper conversation. We can you can't hide history anymore. It's gotten now where you got access to information, and you get access to a lot of information, more information than you can handle. And with that, people are getting visuals and getting access to documents and information in reference to the truth behind history, the true history, not the doctored history that we've been getting, but the true history of of how this country was built. I say, while we have time, get that information, get it, and teach your kids. Let them know what really happened. Don't let them live off that pipe dream, because we already know these institutions that they attend now will not give them the true essence of history. In fact, they're working very hard to say, let's take slavery out of the history books, because it's not beneficial to them. They want them to love a country and not know the history of the country that they live in. And that's something that I've never withheld from my daughter. We've read books. I've given her books and let her see what the true history of this country is about, and not just within this country, but the true history of the world. Because not only has the U.S. have benefited from us, but other countries have benefited from our people as well. So with that being said, family, continue your due diligence in studying and reading the word and looking at history and teaching your children so they can take that information and keep it with them. And I guess that's it, y'all. I've been kind of out of commission, so I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. So Pastor Kelly look like he's sleepy. Y'all see?
Yeah, this how my eyes get when you get late, man.
He's getting ready to go. He's getting ready to go.
Man.
This how my eyes get, you know. But Sissy, one thing it's been long overdue for me to say this. It's a shame what you did to those dogs and 5 hot wings.
I'm so over you right now. I'm just joking. Oh man, I'm ignoring you though. He just trying to make me. They act like they miss me, Saints. Whatever. I look forward, like I said, for us doing. I want us to do that Deuteronomy thing for real though. So Benaiah, Pastor Kelly, JT Preacher, if you out there, and I know you probably are, I'm gonna be tugging on you as well. We're gonna have a deep conversation. I want us to go through all the curses. So y'all game for that? If not, y'all ain't got an answer yet. So I don't want to put y'all on the spot. Hint, hint.
Okay. Yeah, just let me know. Let us know.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks all for your support. Make sure y'all stay tuned for upcoming videos these brothers got coming out, and Benaiah with the video on Amazon. Give us a date and the information on it again, Benaiah, because I saw a flyer on it recently.
Yeah, but I think it was just a republish of the old flyer.
Okay.
So we don't. Yeah, it's still, like I said, it's still going through the process. It is an actual process to get it out on these main media outlets. So it's going through, fam. It's just taking a while to get there. So
what's the name going to be again? To make sure everybody knows.
Reclaiming the Throne is the name of the movie. Yep, okay. 7 hours worth of documentary. You know, so if you've been trying to get your hands on some references and stuff like that, this is the movie to do it.
Someone said Xerox the book for them, Pastor Kelly.
That's why I was over here laughing. I was like, wait a minute. That's why I was cracking up here. I was like, wait a minute. Somebody said Xerox the book.
That is hilarious. Well, family, thank y'all for supporting us. My computer's about to go into sleep mode. All right. Well, thank y'all. And I hope y'all enjoyed it. And like I said, go back and finish the video if you haven't seen it. It's the Savannah video on We Woke. And that's it. Thanks all.